Chapter 3 Pesa, Month 4 of 3818, Korden Kairo. Winds on steady ocean. The most feared man in the world was bent over a bucket, heaving his knuckles wide around the rim, as though it were the only thing keeping him alive. Each convulsion shook his shoulders, and each gasp left him weaker. Korden smirked at the sight, then quickly looked away. He wasn't proud of the thought, but there was something absurd about seeing his father brought low by nothing more than the sea. He sat by the bay window, watching the Kraustedt carve ribbons of foam across the dark water. In his lap rested the dark knight's helm, its red plumes spilling down his legs like a banner. He polished the glass visor until the blue-black steel caught the light, marveling at how light it was compared to his own clumsy training helm, 3 times heavier, though far smaller. Elder steel, lined with Shiliei silk, a lord's armor, not a squire's. The air still carried a sour edge of bile, though Korden's nose had long grown numb to it. He remembered his own first day on the ocean, how his stomach has roiled at the thought of falling into the endless water, far deeper and darker than Lake Zipret. Even rowing near the lake's black banks had rattled him. Yet the memory of victory, of the trophy won and the cheers of his teammates had kept him steady. By now, 6 days into the voyage, he had found his sea legs. His father had not. When Korden dared point that out, the Dark Knight had raps that it was the motion, not the ocean, that sickened him. Korden had laughed, and the back of his head had paid the price. He regretted it now. His father had stripped down to his tanga's small cloth, his other clothes soaked through with sweat, unwilling to risk ruining his last dry pair. Only the insulation of their cabin kept him from freezing. The Kraustedt was built to carry 3,000 soldiers. Today she bore only 50, along with her crew. The rest of their small force was divided between 2 other ships. 100 soldiers, 1 healer, 2 Rohisar medic, an easy assignment, routine but vital. Yet when the healer boarded another ship, confusion rippled through the ranks. This was Korden's father's 7th crossing in 7 years, and every time before a healer's magic had eased his sickness. Now all the Rohisar could offer was ginger tea, apples and water. They urged him to walk the deck for fresh air, but pride barred him. The Dark Knight could not let his men see him hunch over a bucket. Korden set the helm aside, rinsing a cloth, and knelt beside his father. He wipes the sweat from his brow with slow, careful strokes. You need the Aja here, father. You can't last another 6 days like this. Please let me call for him. His father closed his eyes, resting his head against the rim of the bucket. His voice came out soft, almost gentle. I'll be fine, son. It will pass. Korden studied him, 40 years old and still youthful, hair cropped short and dark as the sea outside, brows heavy, eyes the violet of amethyst. He saw himself in those features, though the resemblance brought him little comfort. He loved this man, but he was angry too. Angry to be dragged on this voyage, angry to be far from home. I love you, father, he said, rising to his feet, but I'm going to the captain. I'll bring the Aja to you, whether you like it or not. It took the Kraustedt all afternoon to slow her pace, waiting for the confront, another vessel of her kind. The 3rd ship, the Korden, was already leagues ahead. The Dufera Ocean was calm this time of year, steady winds, clear skies, the kind that carried ships swiftly away. Heat pressed down on the back of Korden's neck as he leaned against the rail, watching the confront lower a boat for the Aja. The captain had bristled when Korden first asked. Was that a command from the Dark Knight, he had said, refusing to send the signal. He will get well soon. Everyone acclimates to the sea. Korden's hands had clenched white. Either that, Korden snapped, or you end up with a dead Dark Knight, and you'll answer for that. The big man had shifted uneasily. Besides, he is in no condition to give orders. It is your duty to keep him alive, Korden had added with a sweeter tone, albeit through clenched teeth. The captain's slow, ponderous tone had nearly driven Korden mad. He had wanted to strangle him then and there, but hindsight told him he would have failed. The man was 2.5 times his size, muscles to Korden's scrawny 14-year-old. 15 still felt an eternity away. Now the captain stood beside him on the after castle's second level, mug in one hand and hardened bread in the other. He dunked the bread in sour, fermented milk and tore off a bite. That was the right thing to do, boy, he said, chewing. He could not understand how anyone could drink something that smelled so foul. On the Kainshon, the Aja climbed aboard the boat. He was a middle-aged man, shoulder-length, hair brown and wavy, without his coat and boots, a leather sack strapped to his back. Korden found himself mimicking him. He too had forgotten his coat, wearing only a long blue tunic trimmed with golden lace, clasped at the shoulder by twin Shiliei silver pins. He had stopped wearing trousers altogether, though the tunic brushed lower enough to spare his dignity. Boots at least he kept on. He had no wish to wash his bare feet with salt water. At 14, the youngest aboard, he expected mockery for his appearance, but the crew treated him cordially enough. Perhaps that was the perk of being the dark night sun. Nice pin, the captain remarked, slurping the last dregs of curdled milk from his mug. The words made Korden smile, warm, stirred at the memory. Thank you. They were a gift from the prince, he said proudly. Confusion flickered across the captain's face, then recognition. Which one? The son of the prince's mother, Korden replied, pride gleaming in his eyes. Why shouldn't it? Lucky you, Captain muttered. I've never met royalty. Korden grinned. He turned back to watch the Aja row steadily towards the ship. Silence stretched until the captain, in an unexpectedly meek tone, asked, Tell me, how is the Holy Mother in person? I regret I've never met the Holy Daman, Korden answered. We've all seen her at a distance, but I know the Air Daman well enough. The captain gave him a strange look, lips curled into a grin. Is she as angry as her wings? Korden laughed, trading an amused glance with the man. She is serious, yes. No nonsense. But no, Captain, I would not call her angry. In truth, she is very pleasant and a great conversationalist. Before the captain could respond, the bell tolled from the crow's nest. The sound cut through the afternoon air, urgent, ominous. The captain set his mug on the rail and strode to the top of the aftercastle. From the breast pocket of his long leather coat, he drew a Shiliei glass eye, raising it towards the signal flag, snapping from the crow's nest. Korden's heart sank. Around him the ship came alive, sailors rushing to their posts, his father's men thundering onto the deck with swords in hand, buckling armor, fastening helms. Who would dare strike the ship of the Holy Daman? Pirates! They struck like lightning and vanished into the sea, leaving no one to bring them to justice. Gathering his courage, Korden turned and hurried down to the main deck. The Aja was already halfway up the rope ladder, climbing steadily while chaos spread aboard. Determination burned in the man's face, and it gave Korden strength. He caught the Aja's arm the moment his boots found the deck. Aja, please, follow me. The ship tilted sharply, groaning as the crowd stepped ballistae fired from below. Korden held tight to the healer's hand as they pushed through the corridors. Gripping it so firmly, his knuckles turned white. By the time they reached the guest cabin, he realized he had never let go. I'm sorry, he muttered, glancing at the man's reddened hand, and he pushed open the door. Inside, 2 soldiers were dressing the dark knight in armor. Sweat poured down his ghostly face, his body trembling as if he had one foot already in the grave. Apologies, sir. I should have been here, the Aja said, striding towards him. His voice carried calm authority. Leave us. The soldier bowed the head to the dark knight and withdrew, shutting the door behind them. Korden rushed to help his father to the bed, throat tight, tears stinging his eyes as he grabbed his father's hand. "Is he going to be all right?" he whispered, his chest heaving. The healer's smile was warm and steady, like an embrace Korden remembered from his grandparents. "He will be as good as new, child, do not worry." The reassurance broke something loose in him. For a heartbeat he thought of his mother, of his grandparents, and his sister who always teased him, of his prince. He missed them all so fiercely his chest ached. Outside he felt the ship surge forward again. "Child," the healer said gently, drawing a brass circlet from his leather sack. "My name is Imon. You must be Korden." On the bed the Dark Knight stirred, reaching into empty air with a trembling hand. His lips moved, voice weak and broken. I need to." Aja Ayman placed one palm on the Dark Knight's chest, then lowered the other on his forehead. His eyes closed. At once Korden felt the air shift. Heat rose through the cabin, pricking his skin with goose flesh spread across his arms. It was like ants crawling all over him. His father's fingers twitched. Color slowly returned to his face. The lips pinkened, the cheeks flushed, the raps of his breath smoothened into steady rhythm. Then, with a sudden jolt, the Dark Knight shot upright. His head whipped around, searching the room. Korden sagged in relief. He hadn't realized he was crying until the tears cooled on his cheeks. He scrambled up from the floor and threw his arms around his father. "Hello, little one. I'm fine." "I'm not little," Korden thought fiercely, but he didn't say it. He buried his face into the man's broad shoulders until his father gently pushed him away. "Bring me my sword, son." Korden scrubbed his face with the back of his sleeve and hurried to the iron chest under the bed. The Archer slipped quietly from the room, and the Dark Knight gave him a word of thanks. Korden stood up with the sheathted blade. The man loomed as tall as a mountain and stood strong as Elnar. Blue steel gleamed like polished lapis. It hugged his body like a second skin, with folds in many directions of movements. He fastened his helm, crimson plumes swaying behind. Korden held out the sword, glass visor lifted, a kiss pressed warm against his brow. His father took the blade, legendary steel that felt heavier in Korden's hand than in the Dark Knight's grasp. Through the window, 5 dark ships closed in. "Stay hidden, away from windows." His father's tone left no room for argument. He was gone before Korden could speak. But Korden never listened. Tugging on trousers this time, he slipped after him. The soldiers he passed on the stairs barked for him to hide, but he pressed on, heart hammering. On the after castle deck, his father stood with the sword drawn. The sea wind pulled at his plume. Then he hurled the weapon into the sky. Steel shattered into a storm of shards. Before Korden could even cry out, the Dark Knight leapt from the rail. His boots struck steel fragments hanging impossibly in the air. One shard, then another, then another. He ran across them as though the broken sword had become a path through the sky. A footstep here, a stride there. Faster, higher, always forward, until he vanished into the enemy's fleet. A pair of hands clasped Korden's shoulders and dragged him back. The captain bent low, voice hard in his ear. "Where do you think you're going, boy?" Korden struggled, eyes locked on the leading ship where his father had landed. Its hull bore old battle scars. The coat of arms was deliberately scraped and stained. But even half defaced, it should have been familiar, if only he had studied harder. The worst of it was clear enough. An Andolion, a ship built to carry thousands. How could one man fight them all? And there was more, 5, maybe 7 others, Kodongos by their build. Hundreds more soldiers awaiting. Korden could not move. Later he found himself staring out the bay window at the darkening sea. The chase had ended and the pirates no longer pursued. The captain said his father would be fine. He is a Dark Knight after all. But the image seared in Corden's mind was of one man leaping into the jaws of thousands. The captain knelt beside him, laying a heavy hand on his back. Boy, our plan was, we would escape. The Dark Knight would stop the pirates, take control and command of one of their ships, and he would meet us at Corbel. Easy for you to say, Korden snapped. He means nothing to you. He is my father. His throat burned, but he held back the tears. He begged the man to turn back. The captain only sighed, gave Corden's shoulder a firm rub, and left him alone. Flickers of light broke the horizon. Reflection ran across the water, fast and bright. Corden's heart leaped. His father, it had to be him. He ran to the captain, but the man was already at the rail, barking orders. The crew worked in tense silence. Even the air seemed sharp enough to cut. Korden stood at the taffrail, cold to the bone, listening to the rush of water beneath the hull. Behind him, the captain adjusted the Shiliei glass eye with practiced hands, crisp, deliberate movements. The flag of Shiliei snapped above the stern. Ease, ease, he drew out, voice carrying across the deck. Korden looked up at him, breathless, desperate for hope. The captain smirked. Boy, your father's on that ship. Korden frowned at his father, spoon poised over his bowl of sweet oats. Honey clung to the edges, mixed with dried fruits and crusted nuts. He sat at the reading desk, chewing thoughtfully. Why do you always read that book, like those people who carry around the four celestials? Daman L, the Dark Knight of Shiliei, had settled into the bay window. His armor rested on a stand in the corner, polished and gleaming. Today he wore only a plain green military tunic, sun-dried but still marked by sweat. The boy noticed his father never even glanced at the ocean behind him. His gaze stayed on the worn volume in his hand, turning the page as though they might break. It calms me, he said. Korden scraped the last spoonful from his bowl, then rinsed it with a splash of water. Folding his arms, he fixed his father with a hard stare. You can't keep me away from him, father. Daman lowered his book. He closed it gently, set it aside, and let out a weary sigh. He is a prince, Korden, brother to the future holy Daman. What does that even mean? Corden's brow furrowed. So you think I'm not worthy of a prince? No, son, that's not what I meant. Daman stood, wrapped his blanket around his waist, and drew up a chair. He leaned forward until they were eye to eye. You're worthy of the holy Daman herself, if she were free to marry. Careful, father. By your own standards, that borders on blasphemy. Korden bit his tongue, unwilling to speak it aloud. You're too young, Daman continued quietly. You can't have a prince in your bed. He reached across the table and took Corden's hand. His grip was strong, the skin rough and thick. You don't know his mother, but I do. The prince's mother is not kind. She is not like the heir Daman or her other siblings. To her, her children are her only pride and worth. If she discovers you and the prince, she will use the guardian to pick you apart and destroy you. A cold dislike stirred in Corden's chest at the mention of her. The woman had always looked at him like someone who was not even worthy of her gaze and attention. He slumped back into his chair. Part of him wanted to protest, to insist that love could conquer all. But doubt lingered. Did the prince even love him? They had kissed in his room once. That was how his mother had found them, smiling, teasing, warning them not to go too far. Not yet. She hadn't known what Daman knew. You're handsome, Korden, Daman said softly. Beautiful like your mother, even with my eyes and hair. Korden swallowed. I hope I inherit your height too, father. I love your eyes, he admitted. I wish I had my mother's aqua hair. The thought dragged him down again, sorrow thick in his veins. I love him, father. He kissed me after fighting with his mother. It was my first kiss. Tears welled in his eyes. Daman pulled his chair close and gathered his son into a firm embrace. The scent of salt and sea clung to him. mixed with the musk of sweat and steel. This time it didn't bother Korden. It smelled like home. I knew heartbreaks too, Daman murmured into his hair, until I met your mother. The captain of the Kraustedt had promised they would reach Korbel in 10 days. On that he had been exact. Korden might have leapt from the ship the moment they entered the harbour, if not for the dark, murky water that churned below. His father would never have approved either. Until that moment, Korden had not realized how much he longed to feel cool earth under his feet, soil pressed between his toes, or the solid reassurance of stone beneath him. 2 other ships were already at anchor, the Korben, which had arrived the day before, and the Kanchon, only half a day earlier. Korbel's port was said to be the largest in all Yalumos, though Korden doubted the locals even had a name for their continent. He knew at least that the city lay under the kingdom of Irdalon. His father had explained that it was governed by a council of 5 stewards, 2 appointed by the king, 2 by the lords, and the last chosen by the priesthood. From afar, Korbel had looked welcoming. Up close, it was drab and crumbling. Docks sagged in ruin, roofs black with pitch rotted under their own weight. Even the lighthouse leaned as though one storm might topple it, though its fire still burned. Compared to Dessenwin or any of the great cities of home, the place was shameful. To sit anchored in the bay, muddy water slapping the hull while they waited for mooring, was a kind of torture. Solid ground was so near, yet unreachable. Korden longed to join the men sent ashore with papers and coin to hurry the process, but his father had forbidden it. He had tried to fill the voyage with reading. 5 books he had brought, histories of war and battles before the Dominion. He had devoured them in the first week. Now it was day 38. He had forgotten to buy more in Dessenwin, and with another 16 days' journey ahead to Shiliei's tower, he prayed the city might offer something worth reading. Sword practice with his father in the evening, or the occasional game of cards when the old man was in the mood, were his only diversions. The afternoon he sat on the edge of the quarterdeck, legs dangling through the bolsters, watching the soldiers at work. They were older, every one of them. The youngest was 21, many newly sworn as protectors of the Holy Domain after years of training. A few had tried to speak with him, but he found one unsettling, another dim-witted, and the third simply dull. They treated him kindly, and with respect for his father's rank, yet always as a child. At 14, that was what he was in Shiliei. In other parts of the Dominion, boys his age were already married. Footsteps sounded behind him. The captain appeared, a chewing stick between his teeth, grinning. "Here, boy, a local specialty." He handed Korden a bundle wrapped in green leaves. "Don't forget to wash your mouth after, or it will rot your teeth black." Korden thanked him, but the man had already returned to the cabin, no doubt to speak with his father. Inside the leaves lay a brown, crumbling sweet filled with nuts. He bit into it and nearly choked on the sugary taste, though there was something oddly familiar in the flavor. It sharpened his thoughts. "Are we going to port?" The question struck him like a bell. Without thinking, he burst into the cabin that had been their home at sea. "I'm sorry," he blurted, stopping short when he saw the captain and his father staring at him, brows raised, but hands far from their swords. "Go sit somewhere, do not interrupt," his father said, leaning back in his chair. The captain stood beside the desk, one hand spread on the wood. Korden bit his lips, lowered his gaze, and retreated to the narrow bed he shared with his father. He broke off another crumb of the sweet and chewed it silently. From the corner of his eye, he watched the 2 men continue their talk. His father looked striking, even beside the younger captain, handsome despite his age. He had dressed in his last clean set of clothes, a white tunic from the army issue, navy trousers, and a leather doublet emblazoned with the emblem of the Air Domain, left unbuttoned. Yet his father was clouded with worry. Their words were grim. On the 6th day of the month of Pesach, An earthquake had struck south of Shiliei's capital. The holy Daman herself had warned the people only moments before, saving thousands, but 4 lives had still been lost, 3 elderly, 1 young man. Worse, the land south of the sanctuary had been devastated. Reports told of no fewer than 10,000 deaths. The kingdom of Montgap suffered worst of all. The sweetness turned bitter in Korden's mouth. He stuffed the rest of the sweet into his pocket and looked down at his dusty clothes. For a moment he felt as though he too had crawled from the rubble. He cursed himself. How could he make the disaster about himself? Then his thoughts raced elsewhere. His mother, his sister. Mother? Muram? The words burst out as he rose to his feet. The captain left silently, closing the door with a soft tug. Korden's father stood and pulled him close. I'm certain they are safe, son. But Korden caught the faint tremor in his father's voice, and that more than anything frightened him. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. And if you would comment, that will help out a lot with the algorithm. And thank you for watching. Goodbye.